Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're taking a look at the Master-Grade Master Gundam, and just take a look at that box. So a little bit of kind of like backstory as to why I'm reviewing this here. You can see how crushed this box is. Sometimes here at USA Gundam Store, in the shipping process, we get stuff that's just like very damaged, and this time we had a bunch of these Master-Grade Master Gundam boxes that just got crushed like this. So I thought, might as well take one of these and build this up and share it with you guys as a good chance, because I've never built this. I love the Master Gundam design, but I thought I've never built the Master Grade, so let's go ahead and check it out here for today's video. I have built the Master Grade Shadow Gundam, or the Spiegel Gundam, from this from the G Gundam Master Grade line before, and it was surprisingly very good for its age. This one came out all the way back in 2002, so it's over 20 years old now at this point. But I do have pretty high expectations for this to stand up pretty well despite its age. But let's go ahead and find out here for today's video. So starting off with the box art, here is some pretty awesome artwork there of the Master Gundam in that signature pose, Master Asia down there at the bottom, and the year of release down here, 2002. So really cool artwork there in the 2002 style. This is a part of the MG Fighting Action line, is what they kind of labeled on the MG model kits from the G Gundam series, so they kind of have some sort of interesting aspects to them. So here's what the ends of the box look like. It's not a very thick box by any means, and on the side of the box here we got to look at the painted sample build front and back there with the wings folded up. And we have a look at the action frame, or the inner frame here, the Gundam fight, and again, forgive my crushed box, but the Gundam fight, the hands that go with the God Gundam and the Master Gundam that kind of fit in together, the darkness finger, the arm unit, the master cloth here, the arm can shoot off on a wire. We've got our 120 scale Master Asia figure included in there as well. On the other side, fighting action, showing off some of the different poses that you can do with this, with the darkness finger, and I believe the cloak can close around the shoulders, but it's not pictured here on the outside of the box. You would think that it would be, so maybe it's not, I don't know. As far as I can remember, the HG kit does, but that came out later. Maybe at the time of this release for the Master Grade, they couldn't quite sort it out, or they just didn't put it on the box art. We'll find out here in just a moment, but there's some foil stickers. Looks like we've got some other extra bits in there we'll take a look at. Let's first start off with the instruction manual. Here we've got a kind of silhouette of the Gundam and Master Gundam Neo Hong Kong Mobile Fighter here. Cool artwork there for the front of the manual. On the back side, if you flip it sideways, we've got nice big reference images there of the front and back of the painted and pre-shaded build there. On the front inside page, we've got some lovely line art and a big wall of Japanese text there, line art of the front and back of the Gundam, information all about the Gundam there, and then our parts list over here on the next page. After that, we've got the page which breaks down what all the different aspects of the build are, of the Gundam are anyway, right there, and then over here around like for the cloak and everything as well. And then we get into the construction, so starting off with the head and moving along, we are going to have some of these classic mechanical illustrations in here, which are really nice to see. Just to give you guys a nice close-up look at some of those. Not as much like mechanical detail going in on these, at least in these illustrations. We'll see what else we've got here, but some really nice just illustration work there of the Master Gundam, talking about some different aspects like the mobile tray system, the head area, so different stuff like that. The next page is our center pages here, where we've got Gundam Fight Ready Go, Deeply Despair, and some more information, Darkness Finger, about the Gundam with some different shots of it there, the painted sample build in different poses, a bunch more images over here on this side, and the painting guide right here for the main Gundam, question mark? Does seem like that's the painting guide for the Gundam, and there's usually a separate painting guide for the character figure, but that's not included on this page, it looks like. Anyway, on the next page we have some more cool illustrations here about the wing shield. So really awesome illustration work there about the arm unit, how that shoots off there. It's got the beam cloth about Master Asia here. We have a couple of stills from the anime and a black and white photograph of the painted figure. Getting to the last page here, just how to kind of use some of the gimmicks, where to place some of the seals on there. And that's it. And as for the rest of our contents here, we've got some foil stickers for the eyes, a camera, and that's all pretty simple, pretty basic. We have some more of these yellow markings, which I think go around like on the wing shield there on the backpack. Not too bad. But we do also have some sticker markings here with some really cool sticker markings for this kit, so we'll see how those look on the plastic. Then we've got some screws. Being an older Master Grade, it does have some screws, but this one actually has 2 bags of screws, so we've got quite a few with this one. We'll see how well those work. Also got this thick black wire there for the arm gimmick. This is about 24 centimeters ultimately in length. And then we've got some polycaps here. This is PC 123, but it's a pretty small amount of polycaps. So even though we've got a lot of screws and it's an older Master Grade, you may have thought that it would have a lot more polycaps than this, but nope, that's it. Getting into the A runner then, we've got 4 colors here, 1 in white. We've got a couple little bits there in yellow down at the bottom. We've got some clear pink over here on this side, and then our kind of dark navy color there. Runners B1 and B2 are going to be all of our red parts here. B2 is basically just those wing parts there for the backpack. All the rest of our red parts are here on runner B1. Runners C1 and C2 are some more like a very dark navy color parts there for the armor. Runner D we have 2 of, some more navy colored armor parts there. You can see this is going to be different, so we are going to have 2 different colors of like a dark navy. And then we've got runners E and F for all of our inner frame parts in a medium gray color here, and these are all in ABS plastic unfortunately, but these are going to be all of our parts for the inner frame. Then we've got runner G, also in medium gray, but this is in that soft rubbery plastic here for some hand parts, a couple of other little bits on there, parts for the bottom of the feet, and that's just to make the kit to be able to do all of its expressive poses and the feet not slide on like a smooth surface. A little bit unnecessary as we came to find out in later years, but Bandai was trying stuff, and yeah, we'll see how well that works. Last but not least then, here on runner H1 is our parts for our 120 scale Master Asia. Again, not really sure why they did these pilot figures in a softer plastic. They're all in like a skin tone color plastic, which is kind of nice, and they're nicely detailed, and I really love the fact that these Master Grades used to have these. Is something that I wish Bandai would still do, but I never really understood why they wanted to make them in this softer plastic. Anyway, that's it for all the runners. Alright, so very, very interesting kit. Here it is, all done, the Master Grade Master Gundam. Very interesting indeed, and I think just like with the Spiegel or the Shadow Gundam that I reviewed, like I said, a couple years ago now at this point, from this same line, around that same time in the Master Grade line, I think that it's probably going to be ultimately an impressive kit for what it is. I think as we get into it here, we'll check out the accessories and all the details about it. We may find that it's got its drawbacks, of course, just being a kit that came out as long ago as it did, and then there being some kind of unique aspects about this being a part of the fighting action Master Grade sort of subline of kits. There's going to be some interesting pros and cons to it, but let's just start off with the accessories and we'll get into it. And as we know, with this series being mostly based on melee hand-to-hand combat, most of our accessories included with this kit is just going to be like different hand options, so let's just go ahead and take a look at all of these. So first up on the kit right there, you can see we have these kind of open resting hands. Now unfortunately, all of our hand options, all the gray hand options are going to be in this dark gray kind of soft rubbery plastic, which again, not ideal. Really don't know why they went with this type of plastic for the hands, but that's what they went with. Now they are pretty nicely detailed, although those mold lines on there are going to be a little bit more challenging to get rid of just because of the fact that they're molded in that soft rubber. So we also have these hands with like the hand would be up, or I guess got down depending on how you want it, but the way that this is molded and designed is that the wrist is bent all the way back like that. And we've also got some like straight pointing hands for like doing a straight on attack like this, or some kind of karate chop, whatever you want to do with those. We've got those for the left and the right side. And then just like for the right side, we have the wrist bent all the way up. For the left side, we have a hand which has the pose with the hand kind of down. This is for doing some different kind of like kung fu stance poses anyway, right? We've also got this hand which is made for holding on to the beam effect that we have for the beam cloth. So unfortunately, we only have one effect for the beam cloth, which I think does look very nice. It would have been cool to maybe have more than one, maybe have one that just has it in like a resting kind of state, and then one that maybe has it in some other kind of different shape. I think would be nice, but that's also cool to be included. And then we've got our darkness finger hands here. So a couple different versions of this, one with like the right hand in this kind of outstretched pose here. Another one which is in the right hand, but more sort of in a pose. I guess this one is probably the one that would match up with this hand, which is actually for the God Gundam. So you can see it's a little bit different shape and a little bit different design, but this gives you a hand option for the God Gundam as well. And you can like put them together there like that for doing the pose. And then we've also got one here for the left side, which is the same like this one that we saw here before. So you've got those for the left and the right side, which do look pretty nice. Again, nicely detailed. These aren't in that same like rubbery plastic, but this is more like a soft plastic like you would have like for your beam effect parts. Then that wire that we had cut in half and combined with these parts here makes for these extension pieces for the arm. Basically what you're going to do is take the arm apart at the midsection. You're going to omit the elbow joint and then place one end of the wire into there, the other end up into there, and then you've got your arm out on this wire, which is really cool. And obviously you could cut this wire down to a shorter length, or you could leave it uncut from the full 20 centimeters and have it really, really long. But that's definitely a cool effect. Then lastly is our 120 scale pilot figure here of Master Asia striking a pose. Again, really nice that these are included. I wish that these weren't in this softer plastic, but the details are pretty nice. You're just going to have some mold lines on there that you're going to want to sand before painting this. But again, the pose and details are all pretty nice on this, so a cool inclusion for sure. Let's go ahead and take a closer look here at the kit itself. Now, as you saw at the beginning, the box was crushed on this, so I did actually have a couple of parts that were a little bit damaged. One of them was the part for like the front half of the head was actually kind of broken, so I did have to glue that part back together actually, but as you can see, it turned out fine. It worked out. And those little gray bits like on the inside of the ear are actually also that same soft gray rubber like we have for the hands and also for the bottom of the feet down here. Now the point of the bottom of the feet being in that rubber is just to give this a better grip on the ground for when you're doing different poses so the feet don't slip. What the point of that rubber part being in the ear is, I really don't know. I'm not really sure why they chose to do that. I guess it was just that that was the only runner that they had in like that gray color, so just for the color separation. But another thing to point out here on the head is that you have a clear part for the eyes and the head camera in there, but it's actually the same clear pink that we have for all the effect parts, so it's like the wrong colors. It's supposed to be green, so I did go ahead and use the stickers there for the head camera and the eyes. You do have a clear part, but it's in the wrong color, so I mean, take your pick what you want to do with that. Around here on the back of the head, no sticker there interestingly for that camera, but you do have a camera there on the back of the head. Now one thing I will say is I just really love the design of the Master Gundam's head. I really like how unique it is. It's kind of very different and it may not be for everyone, but let me know your guys' thoughts on it. What do you think about the design? I think it's cool. Another thing to point out here is obviously on some of these parts where you had larger gates on the really dark plastic, you're going to want to cut those and remove those parts carefully to avoid getting these white stress marks there. And so you'll see a few of them around on my kit here. I'm not too worried about it because, you know, ultimately I would plan on painting the kit anyway, and so that'll need to be sanded more and it's going to be covered up. But if you want to avoid having these stress marks, just be very careful with the dark colored parts of the plastic. Aside from that broken headpiece, I did also have one of these ankle pieces was like kind of bent, so I just had to kind of try to bend it back, and you'll see like down here on this shin part too, you see that kind of like white cloudy shadow on there. That's also a stress mark from that part being kind of bent on the runner. So just things to look out for. Before we get into talking about the articulation, I do just also want to briefly mention about the screws on the kit. The screws were fine. There are a lot of them, but they didn't give me any issue, and I think basically they're just serving to keep the frame relatively strong, although I'm noticing that the one here in the torso is already kind of getting a little bit loose, but I'm pretty sure I tightened that as tight as it's going to go. There's like a ball joint right there in the center, and there's a screw that goes on the two pieces to make sure that's kind of like a tight on the ball joint. But especially with the weight on the backpack, I don't want the torso to just be always falling back like that, so I may have to later on go in and try to disassemble this and try to tighten that screw or something just to try to tighten that joint a little bit. And lastly, on the topic of seam lines, you do have a few around on the kit, though not too many. Like here on the lower leg, I guess if you want to count that as a seam or not, on these parts on the lower leg, there's one like down the side. Interestingly, for this like fin here on the front of the foot, that's two pieces put together, so you'll have a seam line down the middle of that, unfortunately. Also on the thigh part right there, it's just two halves, front and back of the thigh armor that go together. For a very thin thigh, I will say, you could definitely benefit from thickening up these thigh parts a little bit. He's kind of got a little bit of chicken leg going on there, but I think they definitely fixed that design aspect when they went on to design like the Denial Gundam, for example, in Build Fighters. But then you've got like a little teeny tiny bit of a seam line here on like the back of the forearm, but otherwise that's pretty much it. So it's pretty good in the way of seam lines. I guess on the head, if you really want to count this, you'll have a couple of seam lines here on those ear parts as I'm referring to them, but these big parts sticking out are basically two halves, front and back there as well. And so you have seam lines around those parts also, but not too bad. Let's talk about the articulation, as I do wish the head would be able to go down a little bit more for getting that really kind of menacing look of an antagonist Gundam, but unfortunately it doesn't quite go down quite far enough, but it will move up pretty nicely all the way to there, and you can see some nice detail up on that neck part there as well. So pretty good range of movement here for this. I just wish that the neck was maybe a little bit shorter and that it could point down a little bit more. So a pretty easy modification to make if you wanted to modify that. Here in the torso section, as I mentioned about, we do have a ball joint right there, a little bit loose, albeit, but it does allow for some nice movement forward back, side to side, obviously twisting there as well. And yes, the cockpit hatch does open. Just like with the Shadow Gundam though, I find that it's easy to push this part in if you're like trying to press on the part in the wrong way, because there's like nothing blocking it from going in except for this little red part there at the top. But that red part is supposed to lift up a little bit, and then this front part seems like it's made, there's like a joint for it to fold down more for this to actually open up, but I can't really get it to open up any more than that. So that's all I'm really able to get the cockpit to open up. Maybe I'm doing something wrong and I just don't have something in there correctly, I'm not sure, but it sort of opens, though not really very much. Moving on to the shoulders, then we have a really far extension of the shoulder over to the front, which is great for doing lots of dynamic poses. So it's nice that we have a really good range of movement there for the shoulder. That said, upward movement here is going to be limited to only 90 degrees perpendicular to the body there. You can't bring the arm up any higher than that, so that's unfortunate. We've got some rotation at the top of the arm, a double joint in the elbow there. As you can see, the wrist is just on a ball joint, and we have the different options for the hands, so you don't really need to worry too much about trying to pose the hand at the wrist. If you wanted a wrist like a different pose, basically you're just going to swap to one of the different hand options. So you have just kind of like a set few different hand options that you can do rather than articulation. You just swap the hand entirely. Now, of course, another cool aspect that we have with this is the extension of the forearms like that for doing a sort of like punching or a spiking kind of hand action that you can do by extending that out. And again, that looks pretty cool. And before moving down to the lower body, just really quick to go to the backpack here. Unfortunately, the backpack wing shields doesn't actually extend out and cover around the Gundam like it does on the HD, which on the HD I believe is a parts forming gimmick, which is fine. Unfortunately, the Master Grade doesn't do it at all. So you can extend this out and like bring this all the way up like that. And I mean, it looks cool. It would be nice if it actually would close around the Gundam as it's supposed to, like a cloak form, but unfortunately does not do that. One other thing that I wanted to point out here is where we have our other stickers, these yellow stickers here on that, obviously. And I also put a couple of the marking stickers here on the backpack just to illustrate to you guys. Now this one I didn't cut at all, and you can see how bad that looks just because it's on a curved shape right there, and also just the outline of the square outline around the sticker decal. This one I did cut around it, so you can see it definitely looks a little bit better, but you can still just kind of tell how these sticker markings on the dark color plastic are just not going to look very good. On the red color plastic would look a little bit better probably, but anyway. So the wings work nicely that you can move it side to side, up and down, and then obviously extend that out as well. And then the extra kind of wing part here also just kind of moves. So some nice movement of those. Unfortunately, they just don't close around the Gundam. The front skirts will move up a little bit like so. The side skirts are interesting, and then this is where we also have another one of those soft rubber pieces. And I didn't mean to pop this off, but it's probably better and easier to illustrate to you guys where this is that the side skirt is made up of kind of the main middle section and then these two like side sections off to the side. Now these are just going to be able to move around kind of loosely because they're connected into this soft rubber part, so you can see where that's connected into there. It's just that rubber piece. And so I think the problem with that is that these may come out easily later if this gets loose or anything, or if that rubber starts to degrade or anything later on. So you may want to add some glue into those. Again, I can see the reasoning behind it. So like when you're moving the leg around, that these parts will move freely, but I think just designing it as just like a little jointed piece of regular plastic would have been better. But what they went with is just the rubber for that, just to get that ease of movement, which is okay. Around here at the back skirt will move up and down a little bit there, although there's really not any point to that. The legs you can bring up pretty far to the front there. We do have a double joint in the knee. Let's see, that does give us a pretty full bend, pretty much a 180-degree bend there for the knee, which is nice. No separation really of this knee armor. It's just kind of all connected, all made up as the kind of lower part of the leg. The ankle armor is interesting in that it's just kind of like floating on there. It's not really securely attached to anything, so you've probably been hearing it clicking around the whole time as it's just kind of like noisy on there, but the ankle itself will move side to side pretty nicely, back and forward. This toe spike here can also kind of like extend out, and again, I'm not really too sure what the point of that extension is. I guess it's so when you bend the foot you can have the toe bend really far forward, and that kind of gets out of the way. Otherwise, if it was just stuck like that, it would be blocking the movement here of the front of the foot, the top of the foot colliding with the shin. So I guess you can move that out of the way so you can bend the toe farther, which, all right, that makes sense now. That works pretty well. And then I already showed you guys the underside of the feet. So that's it for the articulation. Let's try out some poses then. And I'll admit something to you guys, that I'm no kung fu aficionado whatsoever, so some of these poses may not be correct. I'm gonna give you guys a mix of some which are just recreated from the photos in the manual, and then I'll do some of my own. But yeah, I don't know if any of these may be offensive to those of you guys who do kung fu, and maybe they're not correct, and maybe it's not even correct to call it kung fu entirely. I don't know, but it's a cool kit at the end of the day. For being a kit as old as it is, ultimately, yeah, my feeling on this is very similar to what I experienced with the Shadow Gundam, as well as that these kits actually stand up pretty well. I mean, they do have their flaws. You have a couple of seam lines here and there. You have a couple of points of articulation, which can be a little bit limiting to mobile suits where you really want them to be really nicely articulated just due to the design, just due to the aesthetic of this series. But honestly, probably my biggest complaint about this kit, other than just kind of those small things which are just kind of inherent of a kit of this age, would just be the general design and proportions of it. I think that the proportions and design of the HG is a little bit nicer, but still ultimately it's not exactly what I would be looking for in a representation of the Master Gundam, I feel like. And as very unlikely as it is that we would ever get a 2.0 of this kit, if we were, I think it would definitely be a huge improvement just in the looks alone, just in the overall kind of modern upgrade, update to the aesthetics, to the proportions of it, I think would be really nice. Like I said, like bulking out the thighs a little bit, making the head kind of a little bit more closer to the body, making the torso, like the size of the torso, the size of the shoulders, just kind of some tweaks here and there to the proportions, I think would be really nice to see, like a kind of a little bit more modernized take on this design. But again, really cool kit at the end of the day. I'm not a big fan of that soft rubber used for, in particular, the hands. The other parts don't really matter that much, like the little bit of it inside the ears, inside the waist armor, underneath the feet don't really matter for too much. The hands is the biggest problem with this, and I think one thing that you probably could do is use the Kotobukiya Wild hands. They're kind of pretty close in terms of design to what you have with this. So, I mean, if you wanted to go for like a different hand option set for this, that might be something to try out, although I'm not sure if it would be an exact fit or not. But let me know your guys' thoughts on this kit down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for checking out the video today. If you guys want to check out this kit for yourself or any other Gundam models, you can check the link in the video description to USA Gundam Store. I would recommend this kit. If you're a fan of the design and you want a 100 scale version of it, I really don't think we're going to get a 2.0 anytime soon, if ever, so I think you're pretty much just stuck with this, and it's not a bad option, so check it out. And thank you guys all so much for checking out the video here today. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at an older Master Grade kit, and if you guys would be so kind as to leave a like, leave a comment, make sure you're subscribed. It really helps out a lot. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Until next time, hope y'all have a great day. I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.